IVM.
Hey there, if you are a curious mind who wants to understand how government policies work and what is the effect of government policies on your life, then you should check out The Seen and the Unseen, where journalist Amit Verma talks to guests and also dives deep into understanding what these policies really mean and if they really are effective or defective. You can check out the episodes on the IVM podcast website, app, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hello everybody, you're listening to Keeping It Queer with me, Navin, Noronha.
And Farhad.
Hi guys, welcome to Keeping It Queer. My name is Navin Noronha. Joining me today
is Farhad, Karkaria.
Yes, and we have two special guests today. We say that for every guest actually, I'm sorry. But we have Advaita.
Hi.
And Jagruti.
Hi.
Both of them formed a group called Saahas. It's a therapy organization that helps queer people, deal with their issues. We'll learn more about this on the episode. But before we start tell us about yourselves personally.
I'm Advaita. I am a therapist. Actually, I'm a trained clinical psychologist, and I've been working for the past 9 years. And I identify as a cisgender lesbian woman, but I don't like the word lesbian, so I call myself queer. And
sorry, why is that? Because even I always find there's a little bit of a hiccup when I have to say the word lesbian.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just some kind of negative
the phonetics
connotation.
Of it.
Yeah, it's just like
lesy.
All
There's
those
no
Lebanese
good connotation of it.
At least for me.
Honestly, I can't say it. I don't know. Is it what's the etiquette on dyke? Do people?
No, it's
offensive.
Yeah, it's offensive.
It's offensive.
But I think other gay women can call each other dyke.
All my lesbian friends call it baby dyke.
Just like how we refer to each other as fags. Like it's an internal thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I personally don't like the word. I think it's a personal thing. So I refer to myself as queer or gay. I prefer saying I'm gay. And do you want to know something more about that?
Sure, if you have something more.
My journey is very interesting. I kind of knew since the age of maybe 16 that I did not like boys. But I kept suppressing it because homophobia and pressure. And I actually went through the whole arranged marriage thing. So my family is actually quite progressive. All of my cousins and my brother, they've gotten married.
Except the arranged marriage part.
That's because I was not with a partner of my own. Because I was not into men. I had never explored being with women. So my mom was like, okay, you're 25 and let's just start looking. Maybe you'll find somebody who you like. And I met a couple of guys, maybe a couple of decent guys. I met quite a few people, but they were quite awful. So even if I was straight, I wouldn't marry them, honestly. So I think my sexual awakening actually came through fan fiction. And I kind
of... How cute. Everything you're saying is so cute.
Yeah. So put a pin on that. Come back.
So I kind of discovered FF fan fiction in about 6 years ago. And I was like, okay, and I was so enthralled by it. So I was like, okay, now maybe it's time to kind of come to the conclusion that maybe you're not straight. Then I was like, okay, maybe I'm bisexual. And then very interestingly, I responded to a very nicely written article on a website that has now gone defunct called Wonderful Things Happen. And that mail led to kind of an interaction with the author, and she's my current partner now. That was 5 years ago.
Wow.
So after meeting her, I was pretty sure I'm gay.
Wait, can we take time with all of this information?
Really
there's too much happening. Okay, we'll come back to you.
It's all great though. It's amazing. Yeah.
And we want to talk about Saahas, of course, but now that you've added so much perspective into your life, I'm more I'm like, what's fan fiction we have to talk about? Jagruti,
Hi.
You have to defeat that story.
I don't think I can. But I identify as a lesbian. I have no problems with the term whatsoever. And I found out that I was a lesbian pretty late, because till then I pretty much thought that I was asexual because I really was not into relationships at all. And I don't think I had any issue like she did with respect to coming to terms with myself. Coming out to family was a little challenging, but coming out to myself was really not that hard for me. And besides that, our professional histories are virtually the same because we've been working together for 10 years now.
Okay.
And currently I'm in a relationship, and
so
that's
you're
about
a therapist too.
Yeah, I'm a therapist too.
Awesome.
We met in Xavier's, and we've been friends. We're best friends come colleagues.
Awesome.
So we do everything together. Yeah.
Just imagine if this was two gay guys.
We'd be just like catty and
No, I know we fight a lot. We just fought and
time.
came.
Yeah.
We just had a fight.
You have to tell me about what.
No.
Jagruti will kill
It
me.
was like a fickle topic, like no, I don't want sugar in my tea.
Nothing
okay.
like that.
Okay.
Acha. So basically, like, you both knew each other from Xavier's.
Yes.
And like, who came out to whom first, or like, how was the introduction to each other? Because was there like some, like, you have to actually sometimes come out to your queer peers also?
Yeah.
You know?
No, I think we figured it.
No, so when we met, we did not know. So we're quite the biggest nerds in the class. So we were like, we have to top everything. So that's how we kind of bonded. So we're quite like that.
I thought of that when you said fan fiction.
Yeah. So we were quite academically oriented, and then I think when I got together with my partner, I think I told her, and she met her, and then we kind of shooed her off because we wanted some private time. But that's too much information, maybe. But yeah.
Welcome to our show.
Yeah.
So
I think she told me later, I guess, that she was also into women. So because we never really discussed it. Yeah, we're quite nerdy that way.
Nice. And then from there, like, obviously forming a organization together is a big deal, obviously. I can't imagine helping others out
It's
sometime.
not an organization. It's a group.
Yeah, but like, it's building towards something bigger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like, you want to
definitely.
offer.
How old is Saahas?
It's 1 year old.
Okay.
1 year, 1 month old.
And what made you all, like, what's the process? Like, how did you all come about to doing this? Like,
I think a lot of it came from our own. We realized that a lot of queer people want mental health support and that it's not really accessible. It also came from our own experiences with our colleagues. So we found that a lot of our colleagues, mental health professionals, were very interested in providing services to the queer community, but they were really not very well informed.
Okay.
And we also, it was a journey for us to figure out how to work with the queer community. We didn't have anything like that in our curriculum. We didn't have any. So now we use the queer affirmative counseling approach. That was not something that we were ever thought about. So we had to learn from scratch, and a lot of the learnings came from our own quest to understand ourselves. Okay, so we realized that a lot of queer people want mental health support, but not much is available.
I know what you mean, because so many times
idea.
I'm very vocal about being in therapy, and I go to a regular therapist who I love. But because I'm vocal, a lot of my friends, when they start having issues or something they know they need to get addressed, they message me like, hey, give me your therapist number. And the next question is always, are they gay friendly?
Yeah.
So it's nice that you all are at least dealing with this with that front, like with that foot.
Yeah,
like.
and so we were working with queer clients or LGBTQAI clients in personally, but it has, so group therapy is a very different format of therapy, and with another place where we consult, we've been working with survivors of domestic violence in a group therapy format, and we saw the change it brought in. Like they became friends, they helped each other get jobs, and the confidence, the resilience that it built up. And then we started looking up, and in the West, group therapy formats for the LGBTQ community is very, very common. And we realized that there was nothing like that in India. And nothing facilitated by queer facilitators. It makes a lot of difference when it's a cisgendered straight person doing it, as opposed to someone who belongs to the community and doing it, because you can come from the same perspective.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided that we'll start this group. And So
we associate group therapies mostly with like people suffering from PTSD, post-war and alcoholism.
Yeah.
And to extent I understand why, because the whole process of accepting yourself and facing the challenges of coming out itself can take a toll on you. And
I guess it's also a lot to do with thinking that this is happening only to me.
Yes.
But when you're
Exactly.
in group therapy, I'm sure there's oh my God, this is like... I recently saw a movie about domestic violence abusers in group therapy, and that's the first thing I took from that scene, which was basically all of them thought that, oh, I'm the only crazy woman who thinks that my husband beats me up, but I still love him. They all individually thought that, but when they talk to other women and everybody sounds that, oh, they all are stuck in the same trap. I get how in that sense group therapy might be way better.
Exactly that, especially because there's so much stigma attached to being queer. And there's a lot of stigma attached to having mental health issues. So it's compounded by that.
Yeah.
I think also that very often, like you said, that a lot of people associate group therapy with individuals with problems. But although some of the participants of Saahas have mental health issues, there are some who don't have any issues currently.
Okay.
And they're coming from a point of view of working on their mental health. So one of the goals of Saahas is actually building your emotional resilience so that you don't have mental health issues later.
Okay.
Okay, so it's prevention as well as intervention, and that's something that we are very
That's
passionate
amazing.
about.
Nice. So
Yeah.
you'll have like an entire full form for Saahas.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's sexuality, acceptance, awareness, health, and support.
Nice.
And it's a queer only space, and we've spoken to a lot of heterosexual people about it, and they kind of get offended by that. They're like, why aren't we allowed? We're allies. And we're like, because there are so many straight spaces, so we want to keep this a queer only space. So we are queer, our participants are queer, and for now we're not opening it up. And I think that makes a lot of difference, because some of our participants are not out. Some of them are questioning their sexuality. So when they walk into a room and they know that there are only LGBTQAI people here,
Yeah.
it really changes their perspective.
Sorry, so do you not do one-on-ones, or it's just group? Like,
So no, we do one-on-ones privately.
Okay,
Like
okay.
at other places where we consult.
Okay.
Saahas is a group format.
Okay.
And it's basically at least generally our average number of participants are about 7 to 8 people.
yeah.
And we have a specific topic for every month.
Yeah.
And how we differentiate ourselves from maybe other support groups, so that we actually use principles of therapy.
Yeah.
So we are trained in cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah.
And so we use principles of queer affirmative CBT in helping address those concerns for that session.
Okay.
So CBT is cognitive behavior.
Behavior.
Can
Yeah.
you divulge more about that idea?
Yeah, so it's probably one of the most validated therapies in the world. And in fact, the British Psychological Association, the Psychiatric Association, actually prescribes it for people suffering from depression, along with medication. So basically, it was developed by a psychologist called Aaron Beck. And it was a push. So a lot of people today, if you are interested in the mental health space in India regarding queer mental health, they will often talk about how psychiatry pathologizes queer identities. So psychiatry has always said that being homosexual or being trans is a mental illness.
Yeah, an anomaly almost like. So
Which very recently was
1970s,
debunked.
yeah.
No, even in India, didn't the
Yeah,
Yeah, just
psychiatrist-
before the scrapping of
Yeah.
377 they came
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
But actually both the API, all the major organizations scrapped them in the 1970s.
Okay.
The ICD did it very recently
I know,
in 1990.
Yeah.
And now gender identity disorders also kind of been scrapped out.
Okay.
So the move here is basically, so Beck was a part of this movement. Of course, he had nothing to do with queer identities. He kind of moved away from psychoanalysis, and he kind of focused on humanistic, basically on thought-based therapies. And he believes that our thoughts, like our core beliefs, influence the way we feel, that are our emotions, which in turn influence the way we act, which is our behavior. So it's cognitive behavior therapy. And there is always, you of course address the emotion bit also. And then there are different variations of the same. So we apply techniques of that in our group sessions.
So the idea essentially is that a lot of queer people are more vulnerable to mental health issues, not because they're queer, but because they have to deal with a lot of stigma, discrimination, prejudice, violence on an everyday basis.
And pressing it in becomes like too much.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember I was dating someone over 2 years ago, and the breakup like kept both of us like on the edge, so much so that we could not like salvage anything from the relationship,
Yeah.
but we also could not talk to each other without lashing out. So I thought that, and I personally could not afford therapy back then, so I went to Vipassana, which is like a meditation center thing,
Yeah.
and that helped me a lot. But for him, he had to go to therapy, and the problem was he lives in the Middle East, where obviously you can't be outed as queer first of all. But like he took a while to open up to his therapist itself, and he would keep updating me about what's happening, because he had to tell it to somebody, again because he's living alone in the Middle East, not being able to tell anybody about his life. It just like takes a toll on you, right? So when he finally went to the therapist, and after the third session he finally was able to tell him that, hey, I just had a breakup with a guy, and all of this, and he was like, let fate decide what happens. But surprisingly, he was like, there's a female psychiatrist who's well versed with it, has lived in America, and like knows better about therapy than anybody else.
That's great.
And and then he could like tread his way back to it now. And I don't know what it eventually helped. I think it helped him a lot, but didn't change much of what happened with us, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's the acceptance of what happens, and
But
you
that
move on from
happens.
that.
Mental
Yeah.
illness can like rip through a relationship like a fucking.
And I came very close to like losing everything, like mentally and physically, like this past month.
But sorry, but this brings my next question to you, which is like I said earlier, the first thing a lot of my friends ask me after, can you give me a therapist number? Is he gay friendly? The next question is, how expensive
Yes.
is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you can talk, why is therapy so expensive? And B, is it accessible for everyone?
So
How-
Saahas is free.
Amazing.
And so it's
Where are you all?
So
You are about to have a resident guest.
so it's like you said, the Thane. We were based in Thane.
Okay.
So we were based with an organization called the Institute for Psychological Health,
Okay.
where we consult as private practitioners,
Okay.
and they themselves have very, very affordable rates for therapy compared to the rest of Bombay. And then they give out a space. They have a
But
rehab
going to Thane
space.
itself is another
But
matter.
what's
Yeah.
affordable? What's affordable?
Like a 700 per session,
Okay.
and we know the rates in the rest of the city. Then they're quite expensive.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Sometimes I call up my therapist and I'm like, hey, I want to see you, but I can't afford you. But I
Yeah.
need to see you.
I need
What
therapy
the fuck
for
do I
spending
do?
money on therapy.
Yeah.
sometimes.
I know.
That's how-
Yeah.
And you know what? I'll tell you the flip side of it. Sometimes I think my therapist charges based on how trivial he thinks my problems are. So I automatically feel, no, your problems are too small for 3,000 rupees right now. You know what I
That's
mean?
a lot of money. That's a lot of money.
No, but that's, again, it
Yeah.
varies. And like I said, he's helped me immensely over the past 10 years and stuff. But yeah, money is a big fucking deal.
So that's why we decided this would be. So when we were based in Thane, it was free, and now we're kind of moving to Andheri East, and we're kind of working out. So we're going to be, there's this like a co-working space called WorkCamp. So we're going to be, and that is going to be funded by us. So we are ensuring that the coming to the group is always going to be free. So we might self-fund it ourselves because we can afford to, but we want to we will always keep it free. We're never going to charge
I already
it.
have so much
It's adorable.
respect for you guys. That is amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is amazing. Because again, most of these people they're like 18, 20, 24.
Yeah.
Yes,
and,
that's
like,
just can't
these are people
afford
who've
that.
not even had jobs, and for me to suddenly tell them, yeah, there is a therapist, but he might charge you $2,000.
Yeah.
For them, it's like, okay, I'll just
That's
die, I
exactly
guess.
why we want to keep it free, because those who can't afford individual therapy, at least they have one space.
Sure.
Like once a month, they can come in and talk
And
about
it's
it.
about release, right? So much of it
Yeah.
is just
And
not getting help and like
Reducing
I get it.
isolation, like you mentioned, that
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest things in working in a group, that you think you're the only person going through this, but actually when you come in and you talk, you're like, okay, I'm not the only one.
Sure.
And that I think is such a sense of relief, because it's so difficult to live in the closet if you're closeted.
Yeah.
So
And
since you said that, like, what are the, if you had to say in terms of like, what are the main problems you think are facing the community today? Like things that repeatedly keep coming up, like things, are there any things off the top of your head? Like,
So I think most of the people who come to us are concerned about coming out
Okay.
and dealing with their family members.
Okay.
That's the number one thing. A lot of individuals also have problems in their relationships,
Yes.
and the thing is that a lot of heterosexual couples, if they have a fight, for
Yeah.
instance, with their partner, can often share it with their friends or share it with their family.
Sure.
And that's not something that a lot of queer couples can
I
do.
get it.
So if there are problems in the relationships, they're compounded by the fact that you just can't talk about them. And besides, a lot of people have body image issues. A lot of people have anxiety, depression. A lot of trans clients have dysphoria.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're concerned about surgery
and
things-
misgendering. So I have a number of trans clients who come to me personally, and then sometimes I have to refer them to the psychiatrist because they're really severely depressed, and I will ensure that I use the proper pronouns, the adopted name, and then they go to the psychiatrist and they get misgendered, and then their birth names are used, and then they come in feeling very, very upset, which is so natural.
Yeah.
So that's exactly one of the reasons why we again started this, is because in the mental health community, again, though there is now much more awareness amongst professionals, there continues to be in these matters.
Yeah.
Often people are not asked what their sexual orientation is. People sometimes don't even know, like professionals don't know what the difference between an orientation and identity is, like sexual orientation and gender identity. They won't ask for your pronouns. And if they do, sometimes they will continue to misgender you. And
Yeah.
that really adds to the dysphoria for trans clients.
And dysphoria is something that, for our regular listeners who don't understand the term, it's something where a trans person who's misgendered will feel like, okay, I'm not part of this body.
Yeah.
And I look at the mirror and I don't see the person that I'm seeing in the mirror. I feel someone else. And that can have severe mental toll
Yeah,
on you
it-
again,
it
because
is- it's
you
very
don't feel like you
distressing.
belong there.
Yeah.
And plus the society and everybody else contribute more towards, taking that. And so over the past 13 sessions you'll have done, like, as you said, what are the main topics you'll have touched upon?
So we've touched upon coming out. We've touched upon working with family members. We've touched upon body image issues, depression and anxiety, setting boundaries, and
sex, self-esteem.
self-esteem.
sexual health.
Yeah, sexual health. We talked about sexual communication.
Because I'll tell you what, just a little anecdote, but like I remember there was this one time where I kind of had some risky sex. This
Yeah.
was a couple of years ago, and I immediately went into, oh my God, I have HIV zone right after the episode was over. So, and I then knew that, oh, there's PrEP and PEP, and not having enough information, I felt like this is like Kiefer Sutherland 24, where I have like 48 hours to take PEP, otherwise I've got something. Yeah. So I had no idea, and then I somehow ended up at Humsafar. I believe you gave me the number. I don't know, I remember reaching out to you.
Nice,
but I ended up at Humsafar, and even there, which is a group to help like the LGBTQ community, I just felt like I was being like, go talk to this one, go talk to this one. But the only time I felt some peace is when I talked to their in-house counselor.
Yeah.
That's when like I understood what's high risk behavior, what's low risk behavior, and she was the one who helped like alleviate. Otherwise everyone was just like, oh, now take this test, now you have to do this, don't be stupid. And I was like, fuck. The only
my
time
first
I felt
test at Humsafar, the counselor, after my blood test was done, like it felt like between Gudi Padwa. So like I went on a Thursday, and then Friday was Gudi Padwa, and Saturday Sunday they didn't work. So I had to get my report on Monday, dude.
Oh my
God,
God.
if I die of AIDS in the middle, like, so I come back on Monday, and like again he's like, wait for 1 hour. I'm like, okay, because the other function was happening, and I was like, okay, I'm sitting. Then I go inside, and he looks at me, he's like, so it's not positive.
Okay.
I'm like, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, my brain was just like taking so many math calculations are happening. I'm like, okay, it's not positive, means it's negative. I don't. Yeah. But like the way he's just like go about it, saying, I don't know, there's some amount of sensationalization.
Got it.
Yes, that around all of this.
Yeah.
But like I wrote this whole piece about like how post 377 our main concern should be about just like talking about safe sex in general, because like the amount of people I've met in the past few months.
I know where you're going with this.
Where?
No, because the last, let's say 20 hookups I've had, it is so common for a boy to ask you to not put a condom on.
They're like, I just like the real
and
stuff.
I'm like, I am someone, because when this Humsafar thing happened, there was this doctor there who like got a fake penis, and then she's like, do you usually put the condom until here or all the way here? And if you get a blowjob, is it like till? And I'm like, holy shit! Like I literally just existing can give you an STD, you know. So like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And then there are boys like, and I'm surprised by. It's almost become a game in my head that when I'm hooking up with someone, I'll see if they bring this up, and more often than not, now boys do. And even, I don't want to like this, but like, and I hope the person I'm talking about doesn't hear this because he'll know it's about him. But one of my friends, he was so casual about last week. Oh my God, I tried poppers for the first time. Anal sex was so good after that. Mm-hmm. Then after 3 days, he was like, shit, the guy I had sex with just told me he has chlamydia in the throat. And yesterday he was very like, I just googled what medicines to take for chlamydia. I got it over the counter. Now I'm taking it. You know what I mean? Not only like is he being risky, he's gone over the counter, bought drugs which he think will work, and like he'll not have this.
Because it's chlamydia right now. Like soon when herpes happens, that will be very for everybody to see, right?
Yeah. So we've had a session actually on this because we're generally a sex negative culture. So even for heterosexual people, we don't talk about sex. So when I have heterosexual clients and I bring it up and I'm like, do you have sex? Do you have safe sex? And then there's with a lot of hesitation, they're like, yeah, I do everything. So, but at least you can talk. Like it's easier for heterosexual people to go to a doctor and talk about it, even though there's a lot of morality thrown into it. But it's just not possible for LGBTQAI people to go to somebody and be like, you know what, I'm gay and I have sex with men, because either you're going to get some, not only morality, but you'll probably get a lot of slurs and, a lot of judgment, and the doctor might just be. So,
did I tell you about a dentist recently?
I was going to say a dentist story, but you tell me first.
You'll have to listen to this. So I had like, on Good Friday morning of all Good Friday mornings.
Goody Padwa, Good Friday.
I select like occasions. So my root canal cap comes off. I'm like, oh fuck. And I'm eating poha nicely in the morning. And poha ke saath my teeth cap is also in there. I'm like, okay, now I have to go somewhere. I call my friend. He's like, okay, go to this guy, Sheep. I know him. I'm like, okay, cool, close to my house. I go there in the afternoon. And this guy is also like Catholic, okay? So he's I can't say his name, but he's a Christian, and I'm like surprisingly like, why is he open on Good Friday? Like this guy has very poor morals like me. So I'm like, okay, cool. And And I go in there, and then like he's the fucking quintessential Mangalorean uncle, just like the highest belt pant over here, and like the most checkered shirt you could find in beige, like that. Okay, and but he's very friendly and talking to me nicely, and because he knows my friend, he was just like very cordial and everything. So I'm like, okay. I told him I'm a comedian. He's like, okay, you're a smoker. I'm like, okay with that. And then like he started digging around my mouth. He's like, okay, cap ke saath saath 2 more things are supposed to be done. Spend 20,000 right now. Why don't you? I'm like, let's do one more thing. So I cleaned my teeth and everything, and he was fine. And I was like making jokes throughout because my impulse is to like, because I can't take the drilling of that fucking thing around my calcium teeth. So
your skull.
Yeah. It's like it's a
teeth are a part of your skull, which is why I get scared of dentists. Not because
fucking,
like of the pain. I just feel like they're working on my skull right now.
Yeah, and then like, then we're done with the whole thing, and we go to his office, and now he's like. Because he's like, oh, you're also Mangalorean, I'm also Mangalorean, let's talk about our lives and everything. And I'm like, sure. He's like, what about your parents? Where are they from? I'm like, okay, from this part of Mangalore. And like, he lives like one village away. So he's like, oh, wow, like your parents and I must have played in the Khet at some point. I'm like, so what happens with like a lot of Mangaloreans, and that's my problem, is that they become too chatty and too friendly too soon. Okay, like that day we had like on Vartalab, the other podcast I host, we had a Sardar guest here, and our Sardar audio engineers came in and they started just having a conversation. They've never met each other before, okay, and that's the problem with sectism in India. I'm saying words weirdly today, but he talked to me about like my family, my life, and I gave him all the information because he seemed like a nice guy. Then he was like, what about marriage? And I'm like, I'm not planning to get married. Not like at least to a girl. He's like, oh, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, I'm gay. So he's like, oh, cool. See, I've never had like a proper discussion with someone who's a homosexual. But tell me. And I'm like, okay, so I'm like, if he wants to have a rational discussion, I'm all up for it. I'm always up for like, giving people information that they haven't learned to help their prejudice or whatever. And I'm like, okay, tell me. He's like, isn't homosexuality a disease? I'm like, oh shit. You have to start off from the bottom of the barrel and up with this guy. And like, so I threw in like every, logical argument you usually throw in. Like, okay, it's not about the sex, it's about love. It's about like how certain person.
I am one of those people, I have a problem. I go to the dentist, I open my mouth, I'm like, is it syphilis? Like, even I had a recent skin rash, I went, is this syphilis? Like, I don't know why. I just randomly, I walk in only asking, like, is this, because I'm terrified all the time. And I know that's a big thing in our community. Everyone's constantly terrified. But now I feel like what worries me more is that I don't think people are terrified anymore. There's PrEP now. Oh, HIV is not a death sentence anymore. So it's like, there's some sort of chalta hai kind of thing that's, I don't know, because but talking like, to you, I realized that, no, these are still relevant problems. It's not how I see it in my head. Like when you told me the number one issues that you guys still face is coming out to family. In my head, or our privileged heads, we just live thinking that nowadays we live in a world where it's obviously easier to come out to your parents. Or like, everybody's gay, yaar, aajkal. Thoda to sab, like that's where we are. But these are real problems that still exist.
And not enough reports come out also about people committing suicide who are like going through mental issues and also diagnosed with HIV at some point. Like I have several friends over the past 3 years, like, have taken their own life or lost their lives and nobody spoke about it. Nobody gave a shit. And that's the reality which was there in the 80s and it's still prevalent and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, like LGBT, like they will talk about, I think a couple of years ago it said India had the highest rates of suicides, but they will not break that report down into how many of them are LGBTQAI Indians who are committing suicide. So anyway, that number is bound to be underreported because people are still not okay with reporting that they're queer. And queer mental health is again ignored. Even within the community, we often feel that it's kind of ignored. Like we know that people need mental health resources, they need help. We know people who are suffering from severe depression, severe anxiety, possibly even more severe clinical diagnosis, and who do need help. But I think they're very wary of coming in.
What do you think makes it more severe for us? Apart from the whole being closeted, is there anything like we are not touching upon?
So it's something that we call minority stress. It's just that every minority community has a higher risk for mental health and physical health concerns because you're going through a lifetime of a large number of stressors over and over again. So for instance, there's prejudice, there's discrimination, there's isolation, there's internalized homophobia, all of this, and it's happening over a period of time. So all of that builds up and makes you more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's crazy how many times now, like I live alone now, and if I'm walking down the street, I watch a home back so many times now because I released my video recently, which did fairly well, and like I forgot it on Instagram. I had my call option on, which directly calls my number. So last night I'm done with the show. I come back home at 10:45. Truecaller is telling me some Pawan Sharma or some random guy is calling me. Okay, and I'm like, I ignore the call twice. Then third time I'm like, could be an emergency. Somebody needs some help, counseling, whatever. Like I get these calls sometimes, which are SOS calls. So I answer. This guy is like, sir, I'm from Bandar. I saw your video. Really funny, sir. I stay on this road. Will you come and meet me? I'm like, do you not understand how a call option works on Instagram at 10:45 in the night of all things? And like sometimes you can't know because one guy who hated my video saw my other video about coming out and is like, oh, ye mother chod gay hai. Like clearly on my video he wrote that. Now what's stopping him from like finding out when my next show is coming? No. And so the bigger part about
this is something you think about.
I'm obsessively thinking about it. Like, at least at my parents' house, I was like, okay, my small town mentality will never allow me to like feel unsafe at least. Like my parents are here. Yeah. But now alone, like I saw this one documentary where like this one guy is walking home after like a pride march in Brazil and like just walking down like a nice proper clean society with like gated and everything, and there's a CCTV footage of him just like walking to his house. Some guy's hiding in the corner with a knife, dude. Just comes out, stabs him in the neck and runs away.
Jesus.
And in like one of the most pro-queer spaces in the world.
Yeah.
And what's stopping that from happening in our country? So that fear is genuine.
And it does happen because I think, like you keep mentioning, we are quite privileged in many ways.
Yeah.
So one of the organizations that we work with is an NGO that works with survivors of sexual assault and gender-based violence. And we have had lesbian women coming there reporting that there have been threats of honor killings, threats of corrective rape.
The families, like they've lived together, they want to live together, so the families will go and file an FIR. And if you're an adult and you go to the police station and say that I don't want to stay with my family, so it depends on which police station you go to, because some police personnel are very sensitive or they're very clear in that it's an adult issue, we're not going to get involved. But in some cases then they'll of course moralize it and say this is not right and you should get married to a man and all of that. But some of our lesbian clients have been beaten up. Their male members of their family members have actually told them, we'll kill you if you run away with this girl. And that's the reality. So when a couple that we worked with, when they rehabilitated, they have not given out their information to anyone because they're still scared that the family will trace them down and assault them.
And this is in Mumbai. So
oh my God, this is so disturbing to hear.
We'll take a small break now and gather our senses, come back in the second half. We're keeping it queer. I have Advaita and Jagruti here and Farhad. But like, you're not a guest. Farhad, like it's been time now, like since we started. Farhad's here obviously and he's going to be there.
Hi Farhad.
He almost missed this recording by the way for some other work. So,
but I'm here and I'm so happy I'm here.
Yeah.
This is just so insightful and like I'm quite like taken aback by all the things you guys are saying.
Cool, take a break.
Bye.
Hi everybody, welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please make sure you do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. On our social media, one of the things we do is if you send us a screenshot of what you're listening to, we will repost it on our social network so that people can see that what people are listening to. Put us some comments and we'll respond to them. Also want to let people know that we're still hiring. We're looking for producers, content creators, audio engineers, developers, designers, and business roles, and basically all kinds of other things. Go to the careers page on ivmpodcast.com or send us an email at careers@indusvox.com. Wanted to announce 2 new shows that we are starting, Tech Careers in the New and Agla Station Adulthood. Tech Careers in the New is a brand new podcast presented by Accenture. It's hosted by our very own Shiladitya Mukhopadhyay, my co-host on Shunya One. On this show, he's talking to Accenture leaders about the latest and greatest in the world of technology and gives exclusive tips on technology careers, how to grab opportunities and stay relevant. Watch out for fortnightly episodes on Wednesdays starting July 3rd. The other new show that we're launching this week is an exciting show called Agla Station Adulthood, where best friends Ritasha Rathore and Ayushi Amin ride through the various stations of life. Whether you're in your mid-20s, just entering them, or about to cross into the next decade, tune into this fun show. On Cyrus Says, best-selling author Amish Tripathi talks to Cyrus about the shared universe of all his books, the rich and inclusive history of ancient India, and his new book in the Ramchandra series, Ravan, Enemy of Aryavarta. On Equity Sahi, Shrey Lunkar, Senior VP at Motilal Oswal AMC, talks to Anupam about the pharma sector in India. On Advertising is Dead, Varun Dugirala is in conversation with the founders of Pocket Aces, Ashwin Suresh and Anirudh Pandit. They discuss the growth and potential of the Indian digital content market. On Mr. and Mrs. Binge Watch, Janice and Anirudh recommend shows that are easy to watch. Join them as they talk about the TV shows Love, Crashing and Lovesick. On the 25th episode of Golgappa, Tripti is joined by film director Vikram Fadnis. He talks about how he started his journey from being a fashion designer to becoming a movie director and his upcoming Marathi movie Smile Please. Also, our host Tripti plays an important part in this movie. On Not Just Dansak, Parzen talks to Chef Viraf Patel about Parsi fusion food. They discuss innovation versus traditional food in the Parsi food circles. On Pulyabazi, Pranay and Saurabh talk with investor and trader Harsh Vora to better understand the tussle between the Reserve Bank of India and the Indian government. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Hi guys, welcome back to Keeping It Queer with me, Farhad, and Navin, who happens to be here, and our lovely guests, Advaita
And
Jagruti from Saahas. You made it sound like I was forgetting your name, but I wasn't. Hi, welcome back.
Good to be here.
All right, so in the break, we obviously had a lot of chance to catch up on a lot of things, and like I was smoking, and you are chewing nicotine right now. So
sorry,
but before we left for the break, we spoke about how like queer females have to go through much more than what queer men go through, and like, is there a way like how we can avoid them going through this? Like, I've heard cases from Humsafar also where people who are consultants have spoken about like how situation with the cops is crazy, that they have to run away and they have to be anonymous. It's like almost like you're in some kind of trial where you're the key witness and you have to keep your identity hidden. So is there a way we can at least like reach out to somebody like that?
I think you're saying queer women.
Yes.
So I think again, that's actually a very important point that you brought up, because when we look at the participation in Saahas over the past 1 year, it's mostly been cis gay men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So even today in queer spaces, lesbian, bisexual and trans women or genderqueer individuals, they're not really participating. And we again think it's also because of the heteropatriarchal structure we have in the country, where it's easier for gay men to go out, it's easier for men to be gay, and it's not so easy for women to be queer. Like female sexuality by itself, even heterosexuality is kind of like it's ignored. So queer sexuality in women is definitely, it's non-existent for most people. So we are trying very hard to reach out to lesbian, bisexual and trans women. We do have some LBT participants. We have a couple of genderqueer participants, but it's predominantly cis gay men. And again, we think it's because of a lack, or I think it's a fear of access to the space. They might be scared that coming in here they might be seen, or their parents might ask. I think on a Sunday morning, if a young 18-year-old girl is going out, her parents are more likely to ask, where are you going?
To church. Praise Jesus.
I was thinking about how even this gay men made it about themselves. Like even in the problematic
if you don't watch out,
regions,
there'll be a
all the
party
gay guys
happening.
are like, this is my problem. Women can't have this problem.
The group therapy will become a circle jerk sooner or later. Gay men doing everything, I'm telling you.
Yeah, in fact, we took a 1-year feedback form, and some of our LBT participants did say that please discuss lesbian and bisexual issues.
Please don't tell the gays. can you not invite them? They're just talking too much.
So we were thinking that we'd get some LBT participants to talk to cis gay men, because they seem to be like, we have really nice participants, but when we discuss these issues with them, they're like, really? Like lesbians have this problem? And they're like, yes, they do. Or we've had gay participants like, I've never met a lesbian before, so what is it like for you? And we're like, whoa, what's going on? So yeah, so it's still very, very dominated by cis gay men. So I guess safety, and I guess that is a very systemic issue. Like I think it's much more than the queer space itself. But most spaces, like there are some organizations that only cater to LBT individuals, and I think those spaces you will have more people coming in. But again, there are issues of classism. Some things are very expensive, so the people from the lower socioeconomic strata can't come in. So I guess safety, more awareness. I think there is a guarantee that this is a safe space. So we would love more LBT participants to come in.
Especially, I think it makes a difference, the fact that we are both LBT. Right? Because it's very difficult to go into spaces that are run by gay men.
Yeah. And like we've spoken to people from Gazi and from Umang before, and they stressed on the importance of how like the dire need of the hour is to like have spaces where women can go as themselves and not be worried about like them being too many men. As we said, like the party culture will obviously have like too many men making it about themselves. There's hetero men who just like come in and try to mac on women, and there's no like clarity as to like where can we go and be safe ourselves.
Yes.
And like in fact, like there are Gazi parties where they're like, you can come, you're like, we are one of us types, because I don't have that kind of judgment but I'm like, no, let's not make this about us. Let's let them have their own thing. Especially the T part of it, like trans women, like women who become trans men on the other hand have like difficult issues on their own. Then on the other spectrum there are different issues, so we can't like cap this on like, okay, we have this issue only for gay men or for like different.
Yeah, in fact, trans individuals have several more mental health challenges that are totally not spoken about. So I think one of the things we'd really like to do, because we understand that we are cis.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we may not have too many trans participants is because of that, because that's a natural barrier that's created. So we would like to have one session where we discuss trans specific issues and have a guest who's actually from the community coming in as well.
Sure. So maybe we can like help facilitate that.
Yeah, we'd love that because and we'd like, so right now it's an open space. I think one of the things again would be that maybe lesbian, bisexual and trans participants individuals might be like, oh, but it's an open space with gay men can also come in. But since we're still starting off, we want to not exclude. In fact, we want it to be more inclusionary, because when we've been speaking to our cis gay participants, they're just unaware. They're unaware that lesbians could have these issues. So I think it's important to educate them also that, it's easier for you to access spaces, but it's not easy for a lesbian woman to access this space. So I think it's also important to educate at the same time, which is why we're not kind of keeping it separate for now.
Sure. A bit more than that, I had one question.
Yeah.
Like you briefly said your parents were supportive, but is there any sort of like adversities you guys had to face doing what you do, like with your parents or like with your families? Is there
with respect to work?
Yeah, just with what you do and like because in some way you're telling me all of this stuff and I'm like, wow, these are two women who are actually doing so much for the community. But I also zoom out and I think that even though this is what you do, I'm sure you go through so many like things that you try to dispel. You get where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So I think
unless there's nothing that you all had great.
I think there's
like,
always something. I think no matter how I come from a very progressive family.
Sure.
For me, it was very important to tell my parents that I was in love with a woman and I identified as gay.
Okay.
So 6 months into my relationship, I told my mum, and I think my mum and my dad, and of course there was a lot of crying and tears, and it has taken them some time to understand it. But I still think that acceptance is conditional sometimes, and I think it's also in certain I think there's a lot of erasure of queer identities, even in my privileged situation that I experience.
Yeah.
Like you tell, like my mom is very specific about whom I can tell and whom I can't, and that kind of sometimes
they
annoys
try to
me.
control.
Because it's out of concern, like people will say things to you, but I think it's also because it's this little bit of discomfort.
Yeah.
So I get it. I mean, you have to give it to them. They need time.
Sure.
But in terms of work, I don't think I've experienced any such kind. It's always the kind of curiosity. So you're going for your group today. So how many people come and what kind of people are there? I always tell our participants, because sometimes we have a group in another space where there is a straight group, like a support group for OCD, like people with OCD meeting, and they
That's
always
actually a straight group.
We call it that.
So they'll be peeping in, and we often think that for heterosexual people, a group of only queer people is it's like an exotic zoo. Like, you guys, what are they doing? We want to see.
Yeah, what does this one do? What does that one do?
They look like us. Oh, so disappointing. So I think there's always this curiosity. So what kind of people? And then I'm like, no, some of them are doctors, some of them are students. It's not like, oh, really? Oh, that means, you have well-functioning. Otherwise, all gay people are mad or sad or crying.
Yeah.
So I think these kind of stereotypes are still there, even in families
even
like
though y'all are forward thinking and doing things which are still so nascent in India. Like, these are still things that are not happening on the scale they should be happening. So it's amazing that you do this, but I just, for some odd reason, I wanted to pick your brain and see what
but
sort of
it's
shit you
still
all
very
go through.
privileged. I think we're very, really lucky.
Absolutely.
And that we can do this. Yeah.
And again, if someone had to reach out to you guys in any way, if someone's going through, they're feeling cornered, trapped, how can they? Or what are, not just Saahas, but are there any here's a set of things you can do if you are stuck? Just in life.
Pan-India, basically.
Whether it's with sexuality but what are the sort of things someone can do, if they're listening to this?
So with respect to Saahas, you can reach out to us on our email ID. That's
Okay.
sahastherapygroup@gmail.com.
Okay.
Or you can reach out to us on Facebook. We have an Instagram page.
Yeah.
So that's pretty straightforward.
Saahas Therapy Group.
Yeah,
on
Saahas
Instagram.
Therapy. 2 A's in Saahas.
Okay.
What we also do is that when we have an interview with you before you
Okay.
actually join.
Okay.
So because that's for your safety, for our safety, the
Sure.
safety of all the participants. And we also do a brief sort of assessment in the beginning to see whether your goals and our goals align, and also to see whether you would need individual therapy as well.
Okay.
Because a lot of people don't really know whether they need to seek help at all. So that's one of the things we try to do. Besides that, I think generally it's very important to screen therapists that you go to.
Yes.
Okay.
So, like I said, that it's not something that we were thought about. So a lot of people want to help, but they really don't know how. I'm talking in terms
But
of
what's
mental health
this
professionals.
process of screening? As in,
So, for instance, you need to know whether you feel safe and understood in the therapeutic setting.
Okay.
So, for instance, you need to know that you need to go to therapists who don't misgender you, who ask about your pronouns, who ask about your sexual orientation, who use your name,
who
the
don't
chosen
do
name.
that?
Yeah, like
Who actually ask
who
about
help you
it outright.
regardless of these things.
yeah, no.
Basically.
So like a lot of our one of our bisexual clients was like we went to a very progressive therapist, and then when she kind of discussed something regarding some kind of an issue that would involve another girl, she was like it was just skimmed over. Like that therapist did not really address it. So many very queer friendly therapists also who don't have issues with your sexuality will still kind of avoid discussing the sexuality when it's actually a big part of therapy.
So it's important to actually if they ask you directly, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Because then they're not coming from a heteronormative perspective in the first place.
So how do you suggest someone does this screening process, or is there a place where they can see this therapist would be...
So we have a post on it on our Instagram group about what kind of therapist you should approach, what they should not be doing, what they should be doing. They should never make you feel miserable about your sexual orientation or gender identity.
Because I feel miserable about it already.
They should validate it. There should be no moralizing. Even if you're, especially in terms of your sexual life, even if you have multiple partners and engaging in risky sex, they should just give you the right kind of information without kind of going on about how wrong it is. There should be no judgment. There should be lots of validation, using the right kind of pronouns, using your adopted name. You should be the focus of the session, because often family members do get LGBTQ people in for therapy.
See, but I get what you're saying, and this all seems like basic.
But it's not.
I don't want to belittle it.
unfortunately.
No. Like shrink etiquette. This sounds like shrink etiquette. Like, oh, you know what? He shouldn't misgender. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, I'm an 18-year-old who's not out. I'm not, but like, I'm an 18-year-old. I'm not out to my family. I'm being bullied or blackmailed or whatever in some way. I feel trapped. And in that, when I'm in that eye of the storm, what can I do? How can I get help and affordable, instant help? Like, I'm saying, what sort of measures can those sort of people who are like absolutely
No, so I think that's
clueless.
the onus is also on mental health professionals to put themselves out there as queer-friendly therapists, and a lot of mental health professionals are doing that. Because you're very right. How would you know who is queer-friendly and who's not?
Like we spoke about this whole like when the Indian Psychiatric Society like 2 years ago said that okay, it's not a mental illness. I was on a Times Now panel and like there was like Harish Iyer, Jerry Johnson, and on the other hand we had like Rahul Ishwar and some dumbasses from BJP, of course, and like the Indian Psychiatric Society's head who had issued a statement is there, okay, from the studio. He's saying it that we are healthcare professionals who have understood this, debated it, and now we're coming to this conclusion. But still, the nut jobs on the right wing are just like, no, but then tomorrow you'll fuck animals. Like that's the only argument they run to all the time. Like they are mad people and all of that. And this guy's like, I have degrees. What more should I present to you to understand that? Like, how much is it like? And I know that like while we have internalized homophobia as well and mispronunciation or like kind of not declaring your identity as what it is, it's sometimes toxic because my family, as I said, like we are more or less like my family and I, like we come together, we chill, then we go away and then we talk for like months and then we come back again. My folks came over at my house, my new apartment recently, and my sister came, and we have 2 cats, right? So my sister was like, where's the second cat? Because I see your Instagram stories, you have 2 cats. I'm like, the other one is with my boyfriend. Like, he lives... Oh, so your friend has it. I'm like, but I just said it's my boyfriend.
It is erasure. This is what we call homosexual erasure of identity. Like,
so she met the little cat I have, took photos, went and met my niece at her house. And my niece is like, who's the cat? And my sister is like, oh, this is his cat. And his friend, again, like... So my niece, who's like not even a year old, is now being like inculcated into that whole mindset.
That is that heteronormative mindset,
And on the other hand, my mom, who's been like little more held back, has become so cool with it now, where she's like, like she'll make like obviously very homophobic but like fun jokes. Okay, I'll tell you. For example, when I told her about the cats,
maybe she spoke to your dentist.
Maybe you never know. Like he found a connection. So my mom was like, okay, what's your cat's gender? I'm like, my young cat is a girl and my boyfriend's cat is a male. And she's like, oh, so just like you, huh? I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh my God. Good one, Mama Noronha.
Yeah. And then one more thing. So like, she like, do the cats get along? I'm like, yeah, they play very well. Oh, so cats play and then y'all play alag se, huh? So my mom, like, weirdly enough, she's being like very affirmative about it. She's not making me feel disgusted about myself.
Yeah.
But my sister was supposed to be progressive, is somehow like calling my boyfriend my friend, and which I don't understand.
I think that even with my mother, she's now like this. I celebrate my anniversary in May, and this year she was like, happy anniversary, and she came and hugged me, and I was like, whoa, what's happening? And then she'll go from saying, so she says, so when she said your friend is coming, and I said she's not my friend. So then sometimes she'll go from your partner or your girlfriend, and I think I can sense the discomfort in her
those words like struggle before coming out.
But she's doing it. Like my dad is just like stoic. He does not say anything. So but I still think that when we meet in the family, it'll be like, oh, her friend is here, and I'm like, she's not my friend. Okay.
Sorry, we digress, but you were saying again, how does, apart from reaching out to like, is there anything else?
So
like,
I think a lot
any words of hope or anything like for people, because I feel a lot of times even people reaching out to me, the conversations are always sound like they're stuck and they don't know what to do. And I guess like when you're in the thick of the moment, that's what you feel like. They feel therapy is either expensive or not something they should be considering, but they're stuck.
So I think if you really feel you're stuck, you should approach a mental health professional. You can approach us. You can come for Saahas. Okay, it is free. If you think you can, if you can't afford therapy, come meet us. Fill in our form. We have a Google link form that is there on our Instagram page. Meet us. If you need therapy, we will talk to you about it, like individual therapy. If you need medicines, because if it's really severe, sometimes you do need it.
Sure.
We can't ignore that. We will refer you to professionals. Like we have a couple of psychiatrists we refer to who are gay friendly and who listen to us when we give in inputs. So or they try and use the correct pronouns.
Sure.
And so you can reach out to us if you really feel like you're lost and you're or because especially with respect to money, Saahas is always going to be free. So we're very, very clear about that.
That is amazing.
And I think also that, like we said, that we never really had training about mental health issues of the queer community before this. But now we've had a lot of colleges, professors from different colleges, graduate and postgraduate, who have students studying psychology, coming to us, asking us to take sessions on queer affirmative counseling. So that's very hopeful.
Amazing.
That means that there is going to be a
Next
great number of better, more informed
but also,
mental
is
health
it a part of the
professionals.
curriculum or still
I
not?
think,
Now,
I
a
think
lot of
some
new courses are
colleges
starting
have
it.
it.
Yeah.
Like I think we went to a college in Mulund and they said it's a part, but it's just skimmed over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like nobody really teaches it. So we had a one-day workshop with those students and as to how to basically engage in affirmative practices.
Okay.
And I think we're
Xavier's
also
now is starting on MA, which has this as a part of the curriculum.
Yeah.
And I think it's also some professionals have reached out to us to train them. So we're also, in addition to it being a therapy group, we're also very research focused. So we want to actually make a replicable model. So we want to do robust research and then kind of come up with a manual so that it can be replicated in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
So we are being published next month in a Sage journal.
Nice.
So with the first preliminary findings from Saahas. So we are looking to kind of have Saahas in other parts of the country, city, and then other professionals willing to get trained by us. We're willing to do that also.
So basically, like by publishing papers and theses, you are helping others who are in the same zone.
Yeah, so I think with research, what we're trying to do is make it replicable. So like someone else, let's say if you publish a manual, like someone else living in Orissa or like a queer practitioner, they could refer to this manual. They could have instructions, facilitation, how to conduct groups, and they could start an own group somewhere in that part of the country.
I'm listening to all of this and I'm not trying to this, but I really feel what you do is so invaluable. Like, apart from just the therapy, I'm just blown away by like, not only did I realize how wrong I am in so many ways while talking to you, to assume things and like, oh, these are a set of problems that it's been such an eye-opening.
And also like the entitlement that a gay man has, we are kind of like endowed with that. So to understand that there's different perspectives is always great.
No, but I think we've learned a lot as well. So for instance, one of the things we did, we had a community event for parents.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, and this was in Thane.
Yeah.
And this was entirely in Marathi and Hindi. And we were
very middle class.
Very middle class. So we had a panel discussion with a lot of queer people and mental health professionals, and we were very sure that nobody would turn up. But there were 60 plus parents of queer individuals who actually came and attended.
Not only queer individuals, I think there were parents who suspected their kids were queer, or I think just parents who were curious about it. And there were just like aged people who were climbing up 2 flights of stairs, just to come for this event. And we were blown away by it. And again, I think what it highlights is that we don't have enough resources in vernacular languages. Everything is in English. So we need to have more resources, more events in Hindi, in Marathi, because I think that is why we got so many people in.
Yeah.
So
and I think also that we seem to believe that parents really don't care and are going to be against this, etc. But I think a lot of parents want to help their kids.
They just don't know how.
They just don't know how. And I think we also put a lot of pressure on them. So it's like, I'm gay, now accept me.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, like what do we do?
Yeah.
So I think we need to give them time.
Because I think when I was a younger person, I just kept, you know what, I don't expect you to get it. But now I just feel like what you said, which is, I just feel like in retrospect, they did not know how to deal with this.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
They still don't know how to deal with
You
it.
have to be compassionate and you have to be
exactly. You have to work on, we have to work on their emotions in therapy as well.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's tough for them, but many a times you will think that even the most conservative or not even the most educated parents are the most accepting. Like they will come for therapy and they will be like, okay, you tell us how to deal with it.
Yeah.
So it's not that they're not, like, it's just that the right kind of information is not going out, and I think that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, so basically to all our listeners out there, therapy is important and it's required. Like just like your body needs like a paracetamol to function, your brain also needs like somebody to like take care of it. And group therapy can be fun. It can be a session that's fun as a group without being an orgy. Who knew? But
yeah, we have a rule against solicitation. Like you can't hook up in Saahas.
as you should.
Yeah, I'm like, wow, these guys are doing such a and you say that. Yeah,
I'm a comedian. I inherently like have a punchline.
I did think it, but I'll not say it.
That's the difference between you and me.
No, but humor is great. Like I use it in therapy a lot. It helps a lot. So
Is it? Because again, my therapist was just like, you know what? Humor is a coping mechanism for you, I think. You
It's
really
a skill.
Yeah.
That even I could diagnose from far away.
Shut the fuck up. You know, at some level, I'm like, do these girls think I'm crazy enough to like, you know?
I think they're taking like cliff notes.
We are currently off duty.
Yeah,
So.
Okay.
we're enjoying this.
Nice. So that was it for us on Keeping It Queer this week, and thank you so much for joining
Thank
us.
you so much for
Advaita.
having us.
This is amazing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I have never thanked someone, a guest on the show.
For
not
sure,
not
yeah.
for being on the show, but just for what they do. And I really, you're
Thank
like
you.
the first 2 people
Thank you
I'd
so much.
actually like to thank for doing what you all do. It's so
Thank you.
important.
It's such
I
a-
wish I had this while growing up, even though I'd not have any sort of like adversities or like, you know, growing up. But I just feel like this sort of like conversation, because now we are like free spirited, we talk our minds, me and you, Navin and I, like we do that. But I just feel like, I constantly feel like other people don't do that. And how well in are they? How like, I don't know. And to see that you give them a platform to do that,
amazing.
that is just,
Thank you.
again,
Thank
it's
you so much.
invaluable.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for having us.
So definitely, listeners, please join the Saahas group meetings.
Yes,
It happens
please.
for free. They're moving to Andheri East, so all those who can't go to Thane can come to Andheri East, and soon they'll have different branches, of course,
Definitely.
across the
Everywhere. In Orissa even.
Yes, I think Odisha's come up twice already. Something up with it. I think the Rath Yatra is coming in this.
Yeah,
week.
Good Friday, Gudi Padwa and
And Rath Yatra. Yatra.
Oh my God.
Anyways, where can we find you on Instagram? As you said, Saahas Therapy Group is,
at Saahas Therapy
but
Group.
individually also you'll have handles.
Yes, but mine is like a closed where it's at Advaita N.
Okay.
So, but you can get in touch with us through Saahas.
Okay.
Either
Saahas
one of us.
Therapy
Yeah,
Group.
it's handled by either one of us. So it's
Okay.
not like someone
And
else
this
is
is
handling.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
And no Twitter, not
Okay.
yet. But
Yeah.
Facebook, Instagram, and on Gmail, sahastherapygroup@gmail.com.
Sure.
And you can get us. get
Also,
us.
sorry, but like I've seen, apart from Saahas, I see a lot of times, I've seen it floating around, like our past guest Mahima, I know she shared it once, which is like there's a set list of LGBTQ
Friendly
therapists. Any idea where someone can access
That is the iCall list.
iCall list.
So
That's
this
what-
runs a helpline called iCall. So they've compiled a list of actually mental health professionals you can trust.
Okay.
So in that list, they will specify whether they're LGBTQ friendly or not.
Sure. So this is,
Sweet.
again, if someone who's listening to
Yeah.
this wants, that's an option for
Yeah,
them
so you
too,
can look
right?
it up online.
Yeah.
The iCall list of mental health professionals. We
We'll
can
link
trust.
all of this with this episode
Okay.
in the description, so you all can check it out.
Small I, big call. Like
Okay.
that.
Who like the Apple company.
The apple doesn't fall far from the...
Maybe it's Tim Cook's initiative. Who knows? Because he's gay. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining us
Thank you
once
so much
again.
for having
you
us.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Yes, and we'll join you all next week with a new episode. Until then, you can follow Farhad Karkaria on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm Navin Noronha, House of Noronha on Instagram and Twitter. I'll see you next week. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. See you.
Hey guys, I'm Mikhail Almeida. I host a podcast with my co-hosts Akash Mehta and Siddharth Reja on the IVM app. It's called What a Player.
What a player.
WADDAPLAYAH because illiterates can't find it on their own.
No, and the her at the end is very important. What a player.
Yeah. And it comes out every Thursday on the IVM app. Tune in, we discuss everything sports, all sports.
All sports.
Yeah.
Mainly cricket, other sport in the middle sandwich.
What happened to your language skills? Don't worry, he talks better on the show.
Yeah.
It's a great show. It has all things, including cricket and things around sports as well.
Yeah.
And some personal life.
As you can see, we're a very united podcast, and if you want to listen to us, tune in to us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have. Paisa Vaisa is brought to you by Paytm Money.